there, but I will guarantee you I won't be long. I threw out my back, and I'm on mild muscle relaxant, so I'm also not responsible for exactly what I say. It's very good to be here. Helsinki, this is pretty fitting. This is, in my mind, the start of the mobile gaming business. I guess I equate it to Snake on the Nokia phones. And I've been at this long enough that I competed with Snake, and my biggest task was get somebody to pay for or do something to play a different game that was resident already on their phone. I've been at this a long time, and just to give you a context, and really this is as much about giving you my biases as anything else, I go back with Ilka. I used to publish Samea Games early on when the entire business was about the carriers. I had no idea we'd be talking so much about brands this morning. This has been kind of fascinating. And yet, I also have to say, you know, if you've got a legitimate reason to worry about branding right now because you've got, you know, 10 million DAUs and people downloading your game at a level, you're in pretty good shape. How many people here are independent developers, would consider yourself an indie developer by hand? Okay, a handful. So I really tailored this talk, I guess, more to the people that are trying to break through. If you create that kind of a branding success, believe me, you won't have to worry about your strategy too much. They will contact you. You will be inundated with requests for branding opportunities because brands seek eyeballs. And if you have eyeballs, you win. And that's exactly what Rovio has done. But I started this deal before we had even color phones. And there was big editorials about whether color phones were even necessary. They were just going to be a battery draw. So good or bad, I take all that baggage into everything I do, coming from the original start of this, that we really had to find a compelling user experience. And that really changed, I think, with the iPhone. That caused me to get back in my second mobile gaming company, Z2, where the iPhone allowed us to build really compelling user experiences, real games. We had real studios with real professionals. And the business as a gaming business grew up, whereas before it was purely a contest of who got a very limited amount of real estate in carriers around the world. And now you could build a game and you could break through. And the Rovios and the Supercells and other people with success are paving the way for all of us. And it's very exciting. Well, I think it gets even more exciting as we go forward. This is my third game company. And everything's different about the first one, and everything's different about the second one. So you really have to relearn the entire, I think several people alluded to it earlier on, most recently Vladimir. You can't do what you did 2 years ago and be successful. Launching a great game on iOS, knowing how to monetize it, created a great company in Z2, an ability to make a lot of money, be profitable, control our own destiny, build the games we wanted to. That's not enough anymore. The ecosystem's changed dramatically. There's different markets in place. But I'll tell you, we're funded by Wargaming. I'm going to do a little bait and switch on you here. We are not responsible for taking Wargaming's intellectual property to mobile. First of all, we wouldn't be interested in that limited agenda as game company people. We want to go build what needs to be built for the current market today and where it's going. So we are an independent, autonomous company, DropForge Games, that is funded by Wargaming. If we want to make the argument that we're going to take Wargaming intellectual property, World of Tanks, World of Warplanes, World of Ships to mobile, then we can go make that argument, but that has to be our decision. So I was asked to give you guys a little bit of insight into taking a PC game to mobile. And I will talk about that in very specific terms. You have this PC experience. It's very unique. It's very different. It's very immersive. It's got long session length, play times. And take that to a mobile experience where people are on the move, they're on the go. The sessions are different, the consumption is different, and there's a lot of business model differences as well, which we'll talk about. So to make sure I'm adding real value here, I'm not going to talk in abstractions. I'm going to talk about a game that we're actually making, Card Hunter. This is a game that, has anybody heard of Card Hunter or played it, know about it? Perfect. I got one over there. All right, so Card Hunter was built as a personal experience by a very capable game designer named John Shea in partnership with the guy who created Magic the Gathering, Richard Garfield. And it was their first attempt at creating an online free-to-play game for the PC, and they built it in a browser experience. So it's got a tremendous amount of design credibility behind it, but no experience in designing for the mobile platform or for a free-to-play experience, or for that matter, the monetization layers that go along with that. With that said, this has not been a financially successful game, but it's been really well critically acclaimed and awarded. It's made dozens of best of game lists for 2013. It's won some major awards, and it's got 400,000 dedicated, loyal, capable players, but it didn't financially turn out terribly well for that reason. It's just a limited audience scope. But actually, the LTV, the retention is great, but this game could not come to mobile successfully as it is. Now, it's a great discussion of whether it has a brand or not, just because it was listed among many games as one of the best of 2013. It's clearly not known in this room, and so this one really doesn't have a PC brand that we could take, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. I'll tell you that there's 5 areas that we looked at this game and said this is not going to map well to mobile unless we change these 5 things, but none of them have to do with the mobile platform themselves, you'll notice. I'll talk about those differences in a second. So really quickly, it had literally no way to track a user through the game. It wasn't linear. You could move into experiences and go down all kinds of role-playing adventures, but there was no way from a analytics perspective or a designer's perspective to understand where that person was in the game. Similarly, on the player side, you didn't know where you were trying to go. You didn't have those aspirational paths that you were looking to move and progress through the game. So we really have to restructure the game and make it linear so we can manage our player base through it and understand where they're stuck and where they need help and where we need to make changes. Secondly, really not much of a monetization thinking. It wasn't built into the start of the game design, and it certainly didn't come in strong later. The idea, this is a card collection game. It's a card collection plus strategy game. Obviously, you're going to hear a lot about those games because of Hearthstone and a bunch of different Magic the Gathering and other products that are being recently introduced in the mobile ecosystem. They're actually doing very well. Card games have high LTVs. They're structured so that you are aspirationally motivated to buy a card. The card gives powers with it. They're well-defined, predetermined, and you know how to use them in the game. Therefore, you save up for them, you buy them, you desire them. That creates a long, retentive play cycle, and it creates a high LTV. So you're going to see lots of people coming into this space very quickly as a result of Hearthstone and many of the other products that have broadened this category. And we'll just have to see where it goes. It's got plenty of downsides, too. It's a very core type of game. And you may limit your player base. I think Vladimir also represented the idea that if you dominate a niche in mobile, you're in pretty good shape. Well, I think that's very true. There's not really much of a small niche in mobile. Mobile is such a big and expansive space that even dominating just a niche is a very, very important position to have in a marketplace. As a card collection game, typically you have a certain number of cards that are quite rare and unique and have a high value. Well, that wasn't represented in Card Hunter originally, and I think they missed an opportunity to build in and reflect value in card rarity. And some of these are pretty technical discussions about CCGs, but it all goes to the point of really understanding the game and your player base and how you meet that player base's needs and create a successful product so you can worry about branding down the line and selling t-shirts instead of giving them away. There was no visual payoffs in the original game. We have to make it much more visually stimulating when there's something that happens. I can't think of a better example than Candy Crush in terms of how they've done that and made it fun and exciting and even social as to making achievements within the game. And finally, the polish in every game gets raised and raised and raised with almost every release. Hearthstone has done a fantastic job of raising the bar on polish. And so polish is something you're just going to have to really push into. So to bring this back a little bit and talk about kind of, I guess, 15 years in the gaming business and trying to apply some more high-level wisdom as far as taking a PC game to mobile. I think I've taken a lot of brands to mobile. I've taken a lot of things that hasn't worked. We can talk about those mistakes. We talked about movie licenses earlier this morning, and the first thing came to mind wasn't Spider-Man and the Marvel characters that we made a lot of money off back at Hands on Mobile, but it was Matrix, where I basically lost my ass. Never even got the game shipped because of some of the politics between AOL, Time Warner, the Wachowski brothers, Keanu Reeves' agent. There can be all kinds of problematic business deals which go south outside of your control when you start dealing with big brands. I'll just say that. So they can be very encouraging, they can be very discouraging both ways. And I don't think anybody's got that worked out because nobody knows how big these properties are going to become when they're movie properties that haven't been released yet. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the why, when, the how, real quickly, real briefly, get you off to lunch on taking a PC game to mobile. And the first thing is, and I shouldn't have to say this, I'm in Helsinki, I'm at a Pocket Gamer conference, and nobody up here should be selling mobile. I heard King this morning selling why you should worry about mobile. Mobile wins. I learned a long time ago, this is back at Hewlett-Packard when I was in enterprise sales, that the small fish eat the big fish in computing. We had the mini eat the mainframe, the desktop ate the mini, the laptop ate the desktop, the tablet's eating the laptop, and the phone wins. The phone's the first, the primary, it's the largest volume, you should be in phones. So that, small device which has limited screen size and everything is now a full-grown computer with connectivity, with movement, with tracking. It is the primary device, and anybody that wants to be a globally dominant company better start worrying about the phone device, either directly or through a partner. And three major, and there's plenty of data that support this. It is the largest device. It has the largest device footprint worldwide. It is the fastest growing platform. It and tablets are outgrowing everything before it and will continue to do that. And most importantly, probably to anybody that thinks we're anywhere close to saturation, the largest markets still have very small penetration. There's plenty of upside in mobile. We've just begun. We've just gotten started. That should be a real message of encouragement to everybody. And if you think that, in fact, somehow we are saturated, then we may have wearable computing very shortly around the corner that's going to create all kinds of opportunities for the people in this room and elsewhere. So now we get to the when. When do you jump on an opportunity and take it to mobile? Well, the first thing is brand. I actually thought it was going to be, I guess I should have looked ahead in the agenda, all the talk about brand. I'll spend less time on that, I guess. But I also have something I call DDAM, which we'll talk about in terms of, is it a fit? Does it fit the mobile business marketplace, landscape, device, everything? And then finally, your portfolio. So if you've got a brand, you're in great shape, but be very careful about configuring brands. A lot of these brands are fantastic brands. Some of these don't map to mobile very well, and they will not give you an edge. I don't know how many brands I've taken to mobile in my life. It's got to be in the 30 or 40s. Some have worked out well, most haven't. They don't all translate to a mobile experience. Sometimes putting a brand on a mobile experience does not enhance the experience. In the old days, when you had 17 slots on a carrier deck, a brand got you on that deck, and that won because it was the only selectable game. The ones that didn't have brands came off. Real quick story is, I'll just tell you my failure stories here today. We were told we'd covered every single category on the carrier's deck back in the days. Football games, basketball games, baseball games, hockey, whatever. We all competed. Primarily back in the day, I remember it as Informa and Jamdat going at it, trying to find the right brands to take to the carriers and win. So they communicated they wanted a volleyball game. This is when professional beach volleyball was getting very popular. Women were playing this on the beach, really expanding the visibility of this. It was hotly marketed in the U.S., so all the U.S. carriers wanted a volleyball game. So we quickly got on a plane, we flew to Chicago, and we secured the American Volleyball Association brand, thinking we'd gotten the NFL of volleyball. And we started building the game rapidly. We went back to the carriers and we said, we solved it. We got the NFL of volleyball, the FIFA of volleyball. Here it is. Where do we sign? And they said, no, we're going to go with the Jamdat game. They brought us Baywatch volleyball. And so if I was sitting on deck and I was picking a game, I think Baywatch wins every time as a brand. They didn't pay much for Baywatch. It was a great deal. They outsmarted us. There's a lot of brands that may have lost their value but have great value in mobile today. Another example is we took Top Gun, the movie with Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis, 20 years old. We took it to mobile and it dominated worldwide because Top Gun still had a very strong brand as a movie, as the character Tom Cruise played, as Maverick, and did very well. We paid nothing for it. We got it free for licensing another more contemporary movie brand. Some brands don't make sense to me. Why people would put them on their bodies, I don't know, but all kinds of brands have succeeded. But we do owe basically an applause for all the companies in gaming that have created a brand worthy enough for somebody to paint it permanently on their body. That's an impressive achievement, and everybody this morning is right. If you have one of these brands, you're in very good shape. There's a lot of things you can do. But designing for this brand opportunity really isn't something that I think is a viable independent developer studio goal. I think you should not limit any game you build to being brandable and having a brand that is what I say just extensible. Build something that is extensible, but to have that as a strategy, there's 152,000 games today on the Apple iOS. Most of those are also on Google Play. And if you're just in the top 200, which wouldn't get you in a position to talk about a brand, that's 0.14%. So I would put most of the brand talk on the back burner until you've actually got so many eyeballs that they're calling you. So DDAM, this is the idea that the design, the device, the audience, and the monetization all fits. So starting with the design, just some quick things. How is the game structured? It's not so much that it's linear or not linear, but can you manage the player's movement through the game and track it and improve it? This is a service, as people have mentioned this morning. It starts when you launch. It doesn't end. It's very different from traditional games, even PC games. And when you're starting that learning process between you and your player base. And so it has to be linear to the fact that you can track progress and know what progress is and isn't, and be able to overcome it. We've all probably understood session length has been well talked. People play these things on a bus waiting for a doctor. All of a sudden they've got to go, they got to clam it up and go on their way. It's got to be a session length that supports the mobile consumption. Tablet's a tough one because it can be used very much like a browser or a mobile device. Skill-based games, that's a very important thing to know, frankly. Skill-based games rise in stature with just a very few number of people who master the skill. They're less accessible over time because they take skill, and people get, obviously, when they get beat by better players. So when you have a luck involved that everybody can play and everybody can win, you're going to reach a broader audience, and you have to understand that, and it's got to be tailored into your design. This is one that baffles me, just baffles me that nobody designs virality into their game. I have no idea why people are spending $3-4 on user acquisition, but they're not trying to do that as far as they can organically. If you have a mechanic in your game that motivates a player to invite their friend and play with their friend over time, giving them a boost in the game forever, that's a huge mechanic. I don't know how you can't purposely try and design organic virality into your game. It's not just posting things on Facebook. There's got to be a mechanic that gets you engaged with your friends and keeps you engaged with your friends and their friends that creates this viral effect. You can't afford to acquire users any other way. It baffles me that more people aren't. We started a company called K-Invite, which is basically a viral ad network to combat the cost of acquiring them through ad networks. Ad networks are great. We owe a lot to them. We have to use them. But you should maximize your organic virality as much as you can. On the device side, I guess they're not showing up. Easy. Devices have real estate. Some games, we're doing a card game. We're not going to take it to mobile. We're taking it to tablets. It's actually a more natural experience on a tablet because it kind of replicates that whole tabletop experience. And the cards are now digital and be slid around on a surface. It's a wonderful fit. Other games don't. There was some of the questions we're talking about is AAA games coming from console to PC. Well, I'm one of these guys that's a bit of a contrarian. When somebody says you can't do a first-person shooter, and there just hasn't been great successes, first-person shooters on mobile phones, I wonder why. And I look at some of these games that have been brought over, and they have lots of organic downloads every day. Not enough to put them into a visibility chart, but it amazes me how much pent-up demand there is. We just haven't got the controls. We don't have the screen real estate. We don't have the ability to replicate a great user experience in most first-person shooters on a mobile phone. I hope somehow we break through that because I think there's a big untapped opportunity. It's just right now a limit of the devices and the controls. The audience, there's less core gamers on mobile. Well, is that true? Is it, again, what I just alluded to is kind of a pent-up demand? When we interview World of Tanks users, we know they're playing Clash of Clans. We know there are many of them, a high percentage, I won't say a percentage, but there's a high percentage that play Candy Crush. So it's one thing to say, as Ilka was saying, I don't look at the market like that because I can have those players come in and play my game by making it accessible. We spend our day on a variety of different things, and sometimes we might be a core gamer, but we want more of a casual throwaway experience, intermittently. So we'll figure all this out when we get even more analytically mature about our audiences, but understanding where your audience is. If you're going to take a core game to mobile, you'd better satisfy that core gamer experience first, and 100%, or you're not going to be accessible to the broad audience, and you're not going to please your core gamer base either way. Card Hunter is very much like that. We have a very difficult decision of whether we make it more accessible and broaden the audience and upset our core audience, or we really focus in that core audience and their loyalty and design a game for them. And finally, monetization. I got to tell you, I get 2 or 3 pitches a week. Companies that want to partner with us, and partly our access to World of Tanks player bases and our experience in publishing or what have you. And there's a ton of them that are like premium game strategies. Now, I have nothing against, I've no religious feelings about free-to-play, premium, or even subscription or anything else exists. Right now, there's only one model that builds value for an independent developer, and that's free-to-play. If you don't have a $100 million brand you're taking to market, it represented 8% of the revenue taken out of the mobile market last year. It was about 12% the year before, so it's actually smaller. It's getting smaller, not coming back. I hope it does come back. I'd love to be able to sell premium games. You just have almost zero chance of building a successful strategy on a premium game. Whether you like to hear that or not, it's just true. So the monetization on mobile right now is free to play. That's what accesses players. That's what gives you a chance to invest in your game and build a valuable franchise. Oh, here they go. Thanks. All right, I don't think I missed much there. There's a sensitivity with Card Hunter on pay to win. You guys have all probably heard about this or understood it. There's a lot of people out there that are very religious about it, and all free-to-play games must be pay to win. Well, that's your responsibility to build a game that doesn't feel and act like pay to win. And it's just a matter of not abusing the free-to-play model. The audience will speak for itself. All right. So last consideration is I truly believe that this game has changed now. You have to have a portfolio strategy. You can't just have one game. How does it help you with either downloads or ARPU? It's hard to maximize both. There's very few games that have done both. Making sure this strategy fits into a portfolio strategy so you can do cross promotions, you can scale, you can build a loyalty community that actually pays to be inside your games. Those are all very important to building a scalable business. The how, very quickly, you have to have a platform out focus. Don't take a game from console, from PC, from anywhere, and then try and port it to mobile. Think of the game from mobile out. Reimagine the game from a mobile experience. And if it doesn't work, it's not going to transfer. And finally, monetization has to be fit in from T0. From day one, you have to have the monetization expert part of your game design team. Most studios come to me with a game, and they're doing the monetization in the last third of the game design, or the game development, I should say. The last third of the process, they throw in a monetization. It's the wrong thing. You got to start at the very start. Test everything. Test everything. And now we can. We have oceans and we have drips of data. Let's look at them all. So, summary. Think about being as good a business people as you are gamers. In the gaming business, we're so passionate, we're so loyal about games. It's all about the game, and you can't sacrifice that, but spend an equal amount of energy reading the analytics, reading the market, and understanding what's going to work. Too many studios are just loaded with creative talent, and they don't have the same business acumen to take that talent and turn it into a user experience that can work in the market. Marketing, monetization, and community from day one. That's the social benefit of being on mobile. You have this huge social community. Understand all that from day one. There's so many things you have to do in marketing. There's so many things you have to do to build community, and plenty of those. And as I mentioned, we can now test everything. So if you're worried about the state of the market, that a couple guys own the whole thing, don't worry. This time next year, we'll be talking about some new phenomena, some new amazing things. The market's changing, and it'll change and give you more opportunities. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.